that screens get and the children using screens, but it simplifies our lives so much. It does so much of the work for us. This particular app in particular, I won't give it a plug, but it tells me what time the next bus is coming. It tells me, if I get to this station, it'll follow me to track me in. And then I can even sort of plot it down so that I can look at street level and see if, okay, I'm going to need a place to sit down every 150 meters or so. Can I get to that? So it's this sort of thing. But I use lots of map reading in the work that I'm doing now.
Fantastic.
So maps,
of course. Charlie, as you were talking, you took me back to one of your schools. And I remember I came into one of your schools one day and you gave me a tour of the school when I got in. And I remember you were walking ahead of me so fast, and you were saying to me, over here, Isaac, is the staff room. Over here is Key Stage 1. And I had to keep up with you. And I remember I said, does Mr. Morris walk this fast every day? Oh my gosh, Charlie, I remember.
Those days are gone, my friends.
Wow. And I think that school was in Holborn, if I remember rightly.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Clerkenwell.
Yeah, that's the one, Clerkenwell. I remember it very, very clearly. Oh wow, Charlie! Listen, do you know what? I could be here all day talking with you. So what's next for you? Are you gonna carry on with the bucket list, or is there a number that you're gonna stop at? Or
I'm gonna finish the bucket list. Let's put it that way. It stands at about 220, 230 at the moment. I'm at about 114, so I'm only about halfway through. I've been doing it a year. And after that, I plan to sort of look at my 10 favorite pieces of art in London. So sort of looking at Stanley Spencer's picture of the resurrection, for instance, in the Tate. And then I would go to Cookham Churchyard where he painted it. So I want to look at the painting and then go back and look at something else in London that's based around it. We're looking at the Turner's painting and going down to see the spot where he stood, where he painted it, that sort of thing. So that's the next project after that. Also still writing my memoir simultaneously. My children got me a package last Father's Day that I could write my memoir. So I'm simultaneously working on that.
Wow.
More for them, but not leaving it for society, just leaving it for grandchildren.
Yes, yeah. And Charlie, it's interesting because you know me, as you were talking, you mentioned the word simultaneous. And, I link that word to simultaneous equations. And whenever I'm teaching simultaneous equations, I always start off with an example similar to what you've just said. You're doing something, and at the same time, you're doing something else. And they can complement each other, or they can stand alone. But you're solving problems at the same time. And that is what simultaneous equations are all about. So that was really interesting to me. So Charlie, can I ask? I mean, when you sort of read about education and the way and the direction education is going now, and you hear about schools and head teachers, what do you think has gone wrong in schools? Because Charlie, when I go into schools now, there's no excitement behind teaching. All I see is teachers. They're running around. They haven't got time. They haven't got time to sit down and talk to you. And it's all about paperwork and tick boxing. How does that make you feel? Because when you were the head teacher, your schools were successful. I mean, your schools, Ofsted came in and passed them. What has changed?
I think I'm going to go back to what I was saying earlier, that education is a human right, and I think we've lost sight of that. I think education has become a political football, and it's to be kicked around. I think teachers are so browbeaten now, and you can tell there's 30% less people going into teacher training now than there was back in my day.
Yeah.
And I think that's down to the fact that it's become, despite what some of these academies will say, or these companies that are running them, it is profit driven now. And I think that is the sad mistake. When people's human rights become available for profit, be it health, be it water, be it education, then I think we're on a very slippery slope, and I think that's where we are at the minute. The major reset across society. I think there's got to be almost a stepping back and looking and trying to embrace screens rather than having a fear of them.
Wow. Okay.
I think that's quite fundamental. I think we're going to expect these children to take a role in the workforce in 20, 15 years' time. At the same time, we are sort of hindering their ability to use the screens in school. They're going to use the social aspect. But the way that they use the social aspect, they're not as good as solving problems, on the ground. I think we've got to look at how sort of smartphones can be used in school. And that's something we were looking at in Oman just before I left.
Wow.
So, it's the politicizing of education is the problem, but that's been a problem since my day. And is that going to go away? I don't know. It's something to blame, the web features and all this rubbish. And, yes, if you have a heart and you have a warmth and an empathy towards society, that makes you woke. Okay, I'm woke.
Yeah.
But it is a case that, teachers feel browbeaten. They're just harangued.
Yes, 100%.
They have to be allowed to teach.
100%.
But what you ask the teachers to do has to be meaningful. So if it's a piece of paperwork that's going to drive forward the standard of the learning or the learner, then fine. But if it's just a tick-box exercise to pacify a shareholder, then I'm out. Wow.
So Charlie, if there was a school and they asked you to be a temporary short-term head teacher, would you take it on board, embrace it, or would you just say no?
I like what I'm doing now. I think I'm a trustee for two outstanding schools in East London. If I could give them a plug, Scott Wilkie and Hallsville in the London Borough of Newham. They're both outstanding schools, and they have one of them has the socioeconomic intake is the lowest in the country.
Yes.
But they produce outstanding results, and it was the literacy school of the year. So it's this sort of thing. I like advising now, and I like sort of helping. I don't have the energy to be ahead anymore, to be honest. Like you said, walking around quickly, I can't do that anymore. So I'd rather sort of work at my own pace and try to get the benefit of some of my experience.
Wow. Because a colleague friend of mine, her name is Martha Rollins. She's an ex-head teacher, and she lives in Newham. And she always talks about the schools in Newham. Because apparently, correct me if I'm wrong again, but Newham has got it's a very, very, what's the word? The demographic there and the people and the young children achieving. That's yes. And but as you just said, the children somehow are achieving.
Yes, miraculously so, to be honest. And but I think what you're starting to see now is gentrification of Newham. I think it's just starting to sneak in now, and we're just starting to notice it in the schools I'm working with. Some of the people that are starting to come in now. It's almost like Shoreditch is dropping to the south and east from where it is now.
Wow.
So it'll be interesting to see what Newham looks like in 20 years.
Oh my gosh. Well, Charlie, can I just say a really, really big thank you.
My friend, it's always a pleasure speaking with you.
Yeah, a big thank you for coming to the show. It's recorded, so my colleague Dean has just walked in. And so I'll ask him for a recording, then I can always send it on to you in case you want to.
Okay, great. I would love that. Thank you.
Yeah, to keep it. But Charlie, thanks very much. And thank you. I mean, I have to say publicly, and I've written this down, you always made me feel welcome coming into your schools. Always. You always made me feel welcome. And I remember there was one time, there was a couple of teachers who I think I don't know what it was. They didn't take to me. They didn't take to me coming in because they thought that, because I was a friend of yours, was I coming in to spy on them, or was I going to run back and feed back to them? And they didn't take to me, but you just said to me, Isaac, just teach, do what you do best, and just ignore them. And towards the end of my time at the school, they actually started to communicate with me. And I just felt that maybe it was on their side, maybe an insecurity on their side. But you never brought me in to spy on anyone. You just brought me in to raise the profile and to do what I do best. And that was it. But it was just interesting how some teachers saw me as like as a spy or a threat. I don't know. That was interesting.
It's just the position that I was in schools that were in difficulty and people were fearful for the jobs, etc.
Yeah.
So they would see, they were suspicious of anything that was coming in some places.
Yeah.
I can pretty much guess which school that was.
Well, okay, we're not going to mention schools, yeah. We're not going to mention.
Okay, my friend.
But thank you very much indeed, Mr. Morris. Thank you, Charlie, and thank you for always being there for me. And we'll be in touch, definitely.
All right, my friend.
Thank you. Bye-bye. Bye. Well. I must say, what a lovely interview. Now, this just shows you. I remember when I first started teaching, a head teacher friend of mine said one thing to me, and she said to me, Isaac, whenever you go into a school, be polite, be courteous, be nice to the teachers and the head teachers. If there's any issues, overlook them. When you go into the staff room, do not get caught up in the staff room gossip about this person who doesn't like that person. You go in, do your work, and you come out. And that was the best piece of advice, because I remember about 15 years ago, and I think Dean, you'll know about this. I went to Indonesia to do some training, some self-defense training, and we go to a place called Mount Bromo, and we were climbing up to the top of the volcano, and obviously there's other tourists there who were climbing as well. And as we were climbing, one of these ladies stopped me and said, Mr. Numbervator, Mr. Anoom. And I said, yes. And she goes, don't you know me? I'm from such and such school. And I looked at her, and she was the head teacher from a school that I had been into and that I was going to go back to. And that just brought it home. And that just showed me that in education, teachers move around, head teachers move around, head teachers and teachers, they travel. You heard Charlie, Mr. Morris, talking about going to Amman. And, and there's a teacher friend of mine who's just got a job in Dubai, and I might be going out there to do some work. Who am I going to meet? This is the nature of education and teaching. You meet so many people. Aligned to that, if you think about how many young people do I work with in one day, I would guess it could be close to 500 in one day. It could be more. If I'm doing an assembly, if I'm doing a whole year group in a secondary school, you're looking at big numbers. They know me because I'm one person. And sometimes I'm walking around different areas and I'm stopped. Oh, Mr. Numbervator, you taught me when I was in year 2, when I was 7 years old, when I was, and it's, for me, it's a pleasure, because I have to be nice to everyone and respect everyone. And that includes young people, children, adults, parents, the like. So once again, thank you, Mr. Morris, for gracing the math show, because it was a lovely interview. And as you heard from Mr. Morris and myself, we go back many years, because he's been a head teacher, I'll say a super head teacher, in over 3 or 4 schools, and he's always invited me to go to the school and to work my maths magic. Let's go back to the conversion of the fraction to the decimal. Now, when I was talking to Charlie about how to do it, I said to you about this young person who made, for me, a significant connection between a fraction, short division, and then the conversion into a decimal. So if I have got the fraction 3/4, and I want to convert 3/4 into a decimal, so that means I want to change the fraction into a decimal, but I am not changing the worth, the value of the fraction. It's just looking different. And I think that's what the word conversion in the terms of maths means. When you convert something, you're not changing the actual amount or quantity, you're making it look different. So it's got the same value, it's got the same worth and the same amount. And I think that has to be explicitly taught as well, because sometimes young people think when you're converting a fraction to a decimal, then that means the decimal is going to be worth more, or something's going to be increased. No, it's got the same value, and that is what's important. So how do we convert a fraction into a decimal? Well, there are different ways of converting a fraction into a decimal, and you can. So if I've got 3/4, 3 is my numerator and 4 is my denominator. So to convert 3/4 into a fraction, I'm going to divide 4 into 3. How many lots of 4s are there in 3? Now, as I said earlier, the denominator, if I'm doing short division, and we covered short division about a couple of weeks ago, if we're going to solve this problem using short division, then we've got the bus stop, and then we've got the parts of the short division equation. We've got the denominator, which is the amount that we are going to share, split up, and we're going to share it with the divisor. And the divisor is what we're going to use to share the dividend. So the divisor goes on the outside of the bus stop. The dividend is the total amount that we've got to split up and share. And the result of the division is what we call the quotient, Quotient. So the quotient is the result of the actual division calculation. So when I look at a fraction, the denominator is really the divisor, and the numerator is really the dividend. So 3/4, to convert 3/4 into a decimal, I'm going to see how many times can I share 4 into 3. Now, I know that you can't get 4 into 3. So therefore, we're going to have a 0 point something and something. But here's something else that I heard a teacher working with some year 5 children, and they were doing division. And no matter how many times the teacher said, can you get 4 into 3 or 5 into 2, the children didn't get that concept. So here's what the teacher said. Imagine you go into a supermarket and you have got £2 and you do some shopping and the bill comes to £5. Can you walk out with your shopping? No, you can't. Can you see? Because if you've only got £2 and the bill comes to £5, that's the total amount, you can't buy the item. And the minute she gave this analogy, to the children, to the young people, they got it. So 5 cannot divide into 2. Why? Because 5 is bigger than 2. We're not going to get into negative numbers and decimals. 5 cannot divide into 2. So what do we have to do? We have to start moving the digits across to different place value columns, and so on and so on. But that is how you convert a fraction to a decimal. And then how do you convert a decimal back into a fraction or a percentage? And that is really, really interesting as well. So today's show has been, for me, really enlightening. On the leaflet that I send out, to schools and to individual people that Dean always prepares for me each week, I said there that today's show is going to be informative, it's going to be exclusive, and it's going to be commemorative. And all of those 3 words, it has been informative. Charlie has informed us about his work in schools in England and in Oman abroad. He's explained to us about, as a head teacher, a super head teacher, training head teachers, preparing head teachers. That was informative. We did some maths on the radio. That was informative. It is exclusive because he's got his London bucket list, and he's up to number, I think, 115, he said. So that's 115 different venues that he's been to look at the history and the vastness of the place. So that is exclusive. Commemorative means you're going to remember it. I'm going to remember Charlie for as long as I'm around, because he was influential in my development as a teacher, as a professional, and now, you know, he's handed over the reins to me, because I'm now working with teachers and training teachers. So once again, Charlie, Mr. Morris, out of politeness, but Charlie, yes, I thank you for all that you've done for me, all the support that you've given me. And I know that in the future, you know, I know we're gonna meet up like we did recently. We went somewhere, didn't we? We met in a bar or something. I can't remember now, but we had a lovely chat. And yeah, so yeah, thank you very much for coming to the Math Show, and thank you to all of you for tuning into today's Math Show. It has been really exciting, and I look forward to next Wednesday, 5:30 on Chalk Hill Community Radio Station for the Math Show with me, Mr. Numbervator, and it's all about maths. And you know my motto, maths is for everyone, and everyone can do maths. Have a great evening. Thank you, everyone, and goodbye.